Welcome to Radical Hunter Dogs. We're going to tidy this block up so it's ready to accept the new head. There are a few things to do. I need to take the timing belt off and replace it with the new one, and it's just the last bit of the last job I needed to do. Water pump needs to come off and get replaced, and I need to take the head gasket off and scrape that clean, and any gasket material on the other faces here. So quite a lot to do still. Let's get on with it. So I'm having real trouble fitting this tool on because it goes with the little hole. It goes this way round. Well, it only fits this way round, which is fine, but then it should go that way around because it bolts to that.
You know when you just get a mental block about something? I think this is just one of them. I think the answer is you need to turn the engine around. I didn't work it out, by the way. I have ordered another tool because I end up breaking it in the next sequence of this video. But I think the answer is to turn the engine over. You just can't do it when it's at TDC. And then, of course, if you're changing a timing belt, you need to then undo the bolt and then turn it back to top dead center in order to do all the alignment and stuff like that. I just, for some reason, looked at it, just didn't work it out. Anyway, back to pass wheel to continue floundering with this bolt.
Okay, big guns have come out now. Let's try. This should, in theory, work. Okay, off camera, I've tried to just support this bracket with this, and it's... The car is in 5th gear, it's just the... Still roll. It's all it's doing is bending the bracket. Ready?
Even with the brake on in 5th gear, I think there's still too much stretch in the system. You can see even applying all this torque. Well, we're on to heat now.
Oh my god. Oh. Yeah. Oh. Oh man. Oh my god. Yes.
So that was 2 hours I'm not getting back. I think in retrospect, I think to use that tool, I think it is the important thing to use something to hold the crankshaft absolutely solid, because I think even when you're doing the impact is being absorbed elsewhere in the system and not actually transferring it all to the bolt. So despite that torque wrench advertising 1500 newton meters, which I don't believe is anywhere near the case, by the way, but that's what it advertises. It advertises like 1600 newton meters of torque or something. Obviously that's not being transferred directly to the bolt. This next stage, a bit tedious, but going around with a plastic scraper, quite keen not to damage the head in any way. That's the last thing. You can see getting the metal scraper a little bit out for the stubborn bits, but for most of it, I'm just using a plastic scraper. I've not done this a lot, so don't follow me. Follow someone who knows what they're doing. I'm desperately trying to avoid using that's carbide scraper there, so trying to avoid using anything that's going to scratch the head. I took a long time over this. This is sped up 60 times or something like that. So several hours checking with my finger to see if there's any imperfections in the head. Anyway, back to pass wheel.
A few things I have noticed here. Some damage that was pre-existing. I saw the impression on the old gasket and here. They seem to be in locations that are probably able to be dealt with by a new gasket. Well, obviously the engine was running before, so I'm hoping just to put a new gasket on top and that would be okay. I'm going to get a steel ruler or some sort of flat edge, check with a feeler gauge as well, make sure that it's all flat, and then call it done. But yeah, I've not done this very much. It could be a long way off. I'm just not sure It feels very flat, but I'm not entirely sure. All right, let's go on with the next bit then.
So I think I'm just being rightly paranoid about making sure this head is completely flat, free of imperfections, and clean. So I'm testing it with this steel ruler. It depends on which way I had the steel ruler up, to be honest. Because one side I had it up and I could fit the feeler gauge under it up to 0.15 or something. And then on the other side I could fit it under at all, even up to even the sort of 0.05 millimeter length, which I think is good. So I think, you know, the steel ruler was not built to be a straight edge. And so I'm fairly happy that there's no warpage in the cylinder block. But I think time will tell, and hopefully it's not a foreboding thing. But yeah, at this point, you know, I can't get anything underneath that ruler, even down to 0.05 millimeters. So that should be within spec for a head gasket with a spec of 0.15. So yeah, I'm fairly happy, and I did it across all the axes as well. So next up, it's time to do the water pump. Again, more gasket scraping. This video just seems to be about gasket scraping. I need to think of some sort of pun to name this video. But the water pump came off and left the old gasket very much stuck to the block. Very much more scraping involved. I did resort to using sand. I didn't want to use sandpaper, by the way, on the block. I know people use roll-up wheels and stuff like that. I didn't want to use anything with abrasives in particular. So with this, where sort of any of the abrasive shards are more likely to end up in the cooling system rather than the oil system, I was more happy for that to happen. Anyway, it finally got around. I know you don't need to apply any additional gasket helper or gasket maker, but I applied a little thin smear of blue Hylamar anyway.
Nice shiny water pump is on. The issue I'm having right now is that this is the key which came out of the car. This is the key which Mazda sent me. They're different lengths. Same sort of similar sort of profile. Oh. Well, when I pick it up, similar sort of profile, but the Mazda one is shorter. I'll go and get that.
Yeah, that was a weird thing. Apparently Mazda did change the length of those Woodruff keys at some point in the recent history. And so the ones they send out now are actually shorter than the originals. Apparently it's a thing. I looked it up in some forum posts and stuff on it, so I was fairly happy with that. Anyway, we're on to the intake now, desperately trying to drag off the old fuel return pipe there, fitting a new return pipe and a new leakless system which will help with the defueling. Anyway, Parswell will explain that in a second. Going back to more gasket scraping, more video about gasket scraping. So the exhaust gasket was being removed there, and the gasket for the top cover as well, the valve cover, came with a kit, so replacing that as well. The old one was pretty worn. Going back to fitting on the pulleys now. I'm going to get the timing belt almost set up. Obviously can't get the timing belt on fully because of course their head's not back yet. We are going to get the cylinder head back any day now, but the fitting on the new Woodruff key, decided to use, even if it is a bit shorter, use that as well. So putting the crank bolt back in just for the time being. I'm obviously you need to take it off again in order to put the timing belt on. The next day I made the mistake of wiping it down very briefly with some acetone. Came back very black, which meant not very clean. So I was just texting some people with a bit more knowledge on this to see actually whether I should be doing any more, and I think the answer is yes, it does need to be pretty clean. The cleaner it is, the better. So there we are, back to wiping the same area over and over and over again with some acetone and some brake clean. Did it for a long time, almost as long as I spent scraping it, to be honest. I didn't remove all the marks left by the old head gasket, but I removed basically everything else. So I think I read again in forums that iron can be quite porous, so unless to remove all discoloration, you're not going to do that unless you get it to a machine shop. So making sure that it's flat, that it's clean, and it's free of imperfections is the main thing. And I'm pretty sure I achieved that, because by the time I'd finished with this, I was wiping it with acetone or brake clean, and it was coming back clean. And the last thing, because it is going to be a couple of weeks, I did cover it with a bit of oil, just a light smear of oil, just to avoid any corrosion. Anyway, back to Parswell.
I think we're pretty much done as much as we can without bringing the head back, which is due back any day now. you can see these fittings are nice, new, no leak, quick disconnect, so I can unfuel the car without getting fuel everywhere, much to the delight of the team, who will no longer be covered in fuel after a race with lots of hot brakes. Got a new Mazda timing belt here, Mazda head gaskets, and intake and exhaust manifold. The exhaust manifold, thank you to whoever commented in the last one. They are multi-layer, so the next one is multi-layer. Actually, there are 3, I think. One is multi-layered, or whatever. There's loads of them. It's just normal. There's a diagram online which shows you how to put them in order, and I will do that in the next video. But thank you very much for watching. Next time out, I do hope we'll have the head back on the car and we can start doing quite a lot more with this, getting it ready for the season. Thanks very much for watching.